Hey there, I'm Beverly Sartain, and this is the Holistic Coach Legacy Podcast, where you get support in being an impactful and confident coach. In this episode, we are going to chat with Janice Hagans-Higgins around her story of having a TBI and learning how to coach. If you don't know what a TBI is, it stands for traumatic brain injury. So we are going to hear one woman's journey through coach certification and hear how she received coaching and how she coaches others while having a TBI. Our intention with this episode is to support you in being able to better serve those who might have a traumatic brain injury, or just people in general that have different learning styles or ways of receiving information. I hope you find this episode as enjoyable as I found it recording it. Many blessings to you. Welcome, Janice. It's so good to be here with you today. I'm very, very excited, as I've already been telling you, as we've been chatting a bit, that you're here and we're going to talk about coaching and TBIs, traumatic brain injuries. And so I'm so grateful that you're coming on to share yourself, your story, for anybody else that might be listening that wants to learn more about how to coach somebody with a TBI, but also somebody who might have a TBI that would like to receive coaching. So thank you for being here with us.
I just want to thank you, Bev, for having me. This has been a journey, quite a journey, especially dragging you with me through this journey, because you've been there, from the beginning with the coaching career and starting this all out. And so I just want to thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Yeah. So what would you like to share in regards to your personal journey with TBI? Let's start there so we can hear a little bit about you.
My personal journey began about 6 years ago at a former workplace. I received my TBI from carbon monoxide poisoning. So it's what they call acquired brain injury versus a traumatic brain injury. It's in the same room as a brain injury. So the brain was lack of oxygen. The carbon monoxide replaced the oxygen in my bloodstream. So I had the lack of oxygen to my brain, which caused quite a bit of memory loss, long-term and short-term memory loss. I had a good position. I was doing a lot of public speaking, PR stuff, writing speeches, going out into community, recruiting minority students to the program. And so it left me with aphasia, meaning being unable to speak appropriately, or my thought processes. Like my words would come and I could see them, but I could not speak them. Or what I wanted to speak would not come out, something else would come out. Or if other people were approaching me and speaking and it was too fast, it was like hearing something in fast motion, like, and that could be someone just speaking normally, at a regular tone and level. And I would have to be like, wait a moment, will you please slow down your speech and explain, will you speak as if you're speaking in slow motion? So I could understand, I had to learn how to read and write all over again. I didn't understand the simple words as I and the, those kind of things. So self-taught, self-therapy, I believe in a higher spirit. So I just went by the higher spirit guide of what to do and how to do. And that's how my journey began.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. What reservations did you have about becoming a coach with a TBI, if any?
My reservations were, would my clients understand what I was putting out there or trying to guide them through? So it was because certain those of us with brain injuries, it's like certain words resonate with us, but we can't get them out for some reason. We sort of correlate with the word in another way. For instance, like I say insight, and a lot of people's like, well, what does that mean? It's like a aha moment within self instead, so it's correlating words and trying to figure out with a term that I may say, is that what they mean? So it's sort of like a perception thing and trying to clarify the perception. So, and also, I'll just be honest with a lot of us that have a brain injury. I won't say with everyone. We experience a lot of frustration, anger, anxiety, because we're not able to communicate in the way that we always have been, or so called the norm for everyone else. And with everyone else, it's like I'm 47, so it's like you're 47 years old, you should know what this means, that means, the other means. And for us, it's like learning how to do those things all over again. And yet, and it's frustrating because yes, we were able to do those things before. We were able to speak fluently before and articulate words the way we needed to and wanted to, and even, or more or less, even move body parts the way we would want to. Because at first I was even moving in slow motion like an old lady, because I could not like move my body parts as quickly and as fastly, as swiftly as I used to. So it's this inner struggle with, will other people understand me? Will other people misunderstand me? Will they take me the wrong way? And a lot of times that does happen, even with my own family members. I had a brother to approach me one time that had not visited me since I had it in the beginning, within a year. And he visited and only stayed for like 5 minutes because he's like, Jan, what's wrong with you? You're not the same Jan that I'm used to. I'm used to you being a fighter, and you're not a fighter anymore. And he walked out on me. And I was left sitting there with inside struggling with self, thinking, I'm here, I'm in here. It's just that I cannot communicate the way that I used to. And so we had the conversation about it last year. So about 5 years went by and we talked about it. And he did apologize. He said, I just didn't understand. And I said, it's okay. No, you didn't understand. And that's what goes along with it, is the misunderstanding, not trying to understand, not doing research and looking into it, talking to others that have been through it, and trying to resonate and get the empathy that we need, to be patient with us.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you're sharing about the personal struggle that you've had to go through with this. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on, because it gives every one of us more insight to what someone is going through. And I think whether you're a family member or a coach, or there's some other role that you have, I think it's so important that we hear different people's experiences so that we can be more empathetic and we can be more understanding, and we can know how to better partner up and communicate with the person that we're working with. So your sharing is so valuable, because it's just going to give a lot of people more insight around this particular topic. So I thank you so much for that. So let me ask you this. You do counseling. So what made you want to do coaching?
Well, I had thought about a few years back about coaching, but I just wasn't able to get the time or the money to coach, because I wanted to go into a program and gain skills to do it appropriately if I did do it. So of course COVID happened. I transitioned out of one job as a counselor working with clients that have brain injury. And so that was quite a journey. I did that for 3 years and transitioned from that into private practice and contracting out my services for counseling. And then in the midst of COVID, that did not work out for whatever reason with the company that I had contracted too. And so I found myself with no income, no job. So I thought, well, I thought about the coaching again, and I thought, well, I don't know what to do. And then just out of the blue, boom, Bev calls. Bev messaged me on LinkedIn. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Really? So I believe in the divine universe, leading us and giving us direction. It's up to us whether we follow and take the lead on that. And I thought, well, this is something I wanted to do. I have the time and some resources that I can pull from to start this journey, this new journey. And I wanted some change. So I hopped on board, and here I am.
Yeah, here you are. And so that's what was so interesting about our discovery call that we had, our conversation that we had about the coach certification program, was that the brain injury didn't come up, I think, until close to the end of the conversation. I can't quite remember how it went down, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think I asked something at the end about how, like, what I could do to support you in making this a successful experience, something to that effect. And I really acknowledge you because that's when you brought the brain injury forward for me and let me know that that was something that you dealt with. And so that was really important. And it's important for me to communicate to the listeners because I really think that that really helped our partnership, the fact that you brought it forward. And then I got to ask you some more clarifying questions about how I could support you during the coach certification program in terms of the brain injury. So what else do you think that a coach might ask during a discovery call in order to be supportive when someone has a brain injury?
And that was the big thing and why I brought it up to you, because a lot of us don't like to disclose because we're seen as less than, so to speak, or treated as if we can't do something. So I personally like to disclose that to people because I don't want any misunderstandings in communication, because it can be clearly done. I can say something and not even mean to say it, and the client that I'm working with will hear it, and it's like, well, that's unprofessional, or that's, she shouldn't have said that. And I wanted it to be clear that that happens sometimes because of the aphasia, and just call me out and we'll clear it up. Simple as that, because that's one thing I believe with communication is being honest, open, and transparent. And so, I brought that forward to have that clarity, and because I was concerned about the pace of the program, if I would be able to keep up with the speed because of my processing. And so that's one of the big things, is laying it out for a potential client, what your process is, how fast it may or may not go, and just how the program's laid out, the questions you put forward, your personality. Bev is very humbling and just there, your presence, just being present and being open-minded, because a lot of times we can, within ourselves, have our own perceptions about things and not think about the other person's perception and where they're coming from. And it sort of halts the communication in the process right there. Those of us that have a brain injury and we have the anger and the frustration right up front and forward, if we feel like a person is not listening or validating what we have to say or how we feel, we're done. It's no going back. That's an automatic negative thought process, and we associate that person and their voice with something negative, and it's programmed automatically just because of the trauma. When you have any type of trauma, the negativity association is always there with people and resonates and always sends us up a red flag.
Yeah, it's really great feedback. And it's why I always say in the discovery call that you really are already starting to formulate the partnership there. And I think having this experience with you, honestly, I feel like it's made me better at the discovery calls because I'm really open to partnering up in a really healthy and good way, but I'm also open to whatever the person is going to say is their learning style or a specific need they have, or, I want to know that. And I was so thankful to you, Janice, for the fact that you did share about the brain injury, because I felt like it really did solidify our partnership. And you were so gracious in communicating, how you work with the brain injury and some of your own tools that you use in order to make sure that you are learning and growing. And so it was a really great experience for me. And I think it made me a better coach. So I just wanted to say that to you and thank you for that. Um, and again, I wanted for people to be able to hear this because you're right. We're not always thinking about that kind of stuff or what somebody's particular needs might be. And I actually think it's a really great question to ask, maybe at the end of a discovery call saying, is there anything else that you feel like would be helpful for me to know about you or your learning style or how you process things? Because I think it would provide an opening for someone to share if they felt like it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Wonderful. So for you, how does the brain injury impact you as a coach when you're in the coaching role?
When I'm in the coaching role, I have to constantly, in a way, be thinking about what the person's saying and processing their words versus what I think they're saying. And that's what I love about the holistic coaching program is it's set up in a way with the core competencies and laid out. And that's a format I use to go through the coaching. So, and if something does come up, I can ask a client through direct questioning, what do they mean? So it's clear. So I understand, and it's clearer to me because, like I said, perceptions may be different of understanding of a certain word or a certain concept. I've had that with some clients and had to ask, like the term enlightenment. I had to ask, was that an enlightenment for them? And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I had to explain what that meant. And then it was like, oh, well, yeah, something like that. And then they would explain what it was for them. So that provides clarity, just following those guidelines helps set forth for me how to present, how to help my client through the process.
Awesome. It's good to hear that the core competencies are very much in line with you actually understanding your client better or your coachee better. And so it's good to hear that direct communication or powerful questions or these different core competencies are really helpful when you have brain injury to be able to ask clarifying questions. One, so that you're more clear, but it's also supporting your client or coachee and being more clear. And so, what about as a coachee? How does the brain injury impact you there?
Sometimes, it depends on who was coaching me. It may trigger a little frustration or agitation with certain words or me trying to clarify what I actually meant. So sometimes that's a little struggle. But again, it all depends on the coach. And if the coach is very patient and open to, wait a minute, what do I thought it meant blah, but you're saying something else. Would you elaborate? or break it down for me. So that had helped a whole lot with those that did coach me, and it felt like there was a brick wall instead of getting upset for a moment and just telling myself, because I even have to tell myself, and I tell a lot of clients and people when I do videos, the two questions: what is this about? Where is this coming from? So if I can pin that down and be like, oh, this is just me getting frustrated because they don't understand me, then it's up to me to recognize that and for me to help clarify that, because they don't know if I don't clarify that and help them. They're not in my head. They don't, they don't get it. So it's good to take a moment, take a deep breath, and ask self, where is this at? What is this about? Where is this coming from? And answer that to self, and then be able to get back in there and come at a place of love and empathy and state what I mean, and try to ask them, do they understand what I was trying to say, and making that clarification good between each other.
Yeah, it's fascinating because what I'm hearing is just effective communication, is really important when somebody has a TBI or a brain injury. And so I find that so interesting, because I always say that coaching is very much about having effective communication with your partner, with the person that you're working with. And so it just sounds like coaching is very conducive to working with somebody that does have a brain injury, because it is all about clear, effective communication. And a lot of the core competencies and skills are about having clear and effective communication with somebody. So do you ever find that with the TBI that it's hard to access like your own agreement or your own insights or awareness, or not?
Sometimes, as a coach or a coachee?
As a coachee. I guess either, really.
Yeah.
I can imagine it happens in both places, right? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it is. And that's why it's good to have a coach. When I was going through my process through the program and had my own coach, it was like I made the statement, bring Janice back to life. That was the statement. That was my goal. Of course, the coach has no idea what that means, but only to follow the guidelines, the core competencies, and work with me in that kind of structure. And the coach was able to ask, what does that mean to you? And me able to bring that forward and explain who I was before brain injury, who I became afterwards, and then the current person, and trying to emerge all of these people, because we're still, when you have a brain injury, we're always, it just depends on the person. We're always grieving who we once were. It's a loss. It's a death. Yeah. So it's a death to a lifestyle. It's a death to the things that we could do and were able to do, versus not being able to do those things now, or learning how to do those things in a different way. And that's how the brain works. It reconditions to make new wires, new connections in a different way. And so we may not be able to peel a banana the way we did before. We may have to get a knife and cut the top off and peel the banana that way this time. So it's, again, going back to learning different ways and different styles for self to incorporate into this new life we have. And sometimes some things do come back to us and we're able to do them the way we did before, yet emerging who we are now. So there's always this merging of personalities. I tell people, even in my counseling, we have different parts of us. It's up to us to give each part of us what it needs. If we don't give each part of ourselves what we need, what it needs, then we may end up being something later on in life, or in a position in life, or with someone in life, that we find ourselves, what did I do? This is not right for me. I've been going on this long, and now it's not right, because we did not allow each part of self to get what it needed.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And what do you think that brain injury part needs?
My brain injury part needed time and patience, love and understanding, and to be acknowledged. I especially working with my people, I call them my people, brain injury clients. A lot of times we always have people telling us what to do, when to do, how to do, what for, yet not taking a moment to look us in the eye and acknowledging, I understand you're there, you're in there. And I understand you're struggling, and I understand you're trying to work your way out and doing the best that you can in the moment. And I'm here for you. I'm here with you. Let's do this together. And that was one of the big things about coaching too. It's a team effort. It's teamwork. I didn't feel like I was alone. I felt like someone was with me. And I've tried to express that.
It was.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. No, you go for it. I was just gonna say that you were so empowered by the process, and that was just incredible to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I've seen so many professionals, we get master's degrees, doctorate degrees, and things. We only know 10% of what the brain can do. That's a whole 90 other percent, or give or take, that we have no idea of what it's capable of. And to set everything in this box and say, this is not possible, that is not possible. I was told when I first got evaluated by the psychologist, was I had the brain of a 67-year-old, and that I would never be able to complete a school program ever again. So that was another thing why I brought up the brain injury when you tried to get me to buy into the coaching program. Mm-hmm. So, and that negative thought being there is like, and being able to tell self, wait a moment, just because they said I couldn't do it doesn't necessarily mean that I can't. Why not give it a try? At least give it a try. And at the end of the day, I can say that I've tried. Yeah.
Well, you did a lot more than that because you rocked it. You were so inspiring through the whole program, and there was such a transformation that happened for you. And I just have so much respect for how you went through the experience, completely engaged, present. And that just speaks to you, Janice, your character, that character within yourself. And so that was what was just most beautiful for me to witness, was just how you embraced the process and you allowed it to empower you. And, I would have not known that you had a brain injury unless you would have told me. That's the truth. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very, very grateful that you did, because I think it supported me in supporting you through the process, but you supported yourself masterfully throughout the process. And that's really why I wanted you to be here, because I wanted you to be able to share a little bit about how you did that. So how did you set yourself up for success while you were going through the program?
I always tried to set a time aside, structure. I have to have some sort of structure, time aside to do assignments, time aside to meet with my coach or my coachee, and try to maintain that structure. If in a lot of brain injury, people are like this. We have to have structure. If something is out of that structure, and Bev can tell you, there were a lot of times things just didn't work out for whatever reason. I would personally get upset, but then I had to take time, do the deep breathing. I also do aromatherapy now and have
Mm-hmm.
apply the aromatherapy technique to my coaching. And it's like, okay, wait a moment. Although this one thing went wrong, it doesn't mean that everything else has to be wrong or go wrong. And for a lot of us, it seems that way. When our day starts off bad, it seems like everything the rest of the day goes bad for us. Yet, staying in those parameters of having things in place that I know help me and sticking to those things, that's what helped keep me going and keep me in place and intact for things and help set me up for so-called success.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're such a wonderful role model. And so I'm certainly hoping if there's anybody listening that has a brain injury or knows somebody that does, that they will reach out to you, as a support. So let me ask you this: what's the legacy that you would like to leave through your coaching, your counseling, through the awesome work that you're doing?
One of my model statements is a lot of people say take things one moment at a time, but I personally think that so many things can happen in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to say take things moment by moment, and that's how we process too. Is it mentally, physically, is because everything's in motion. Is taking things moment by moment. We all have in us what we need. It's up to us to reach out to those that can help guide us to bring those things out and to flourish. That's what I would like people to
Fantastic.
know and to understand. We have the
Yeah.
tools within us. It's up to using the guides that we have in life to help us. And there's nothing wrong with accepting help, because so many of us are so independent too, and we don't like to accept help. But there's nothing wrong with accepting help. It keeps us from being
So
stuck.
true. Yeah, so true. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful life lesson along the way is community support, people that have walked a similar path. We can leverage all of those things, but we have to open ourselves up to that, which is what I'm hearing you say. And so if someone wanted to reach out to you, Janice, how might they do that?
I have a website, Healing with Janice website. I also have a private Facebook group for women that have been through trauma where I go live Monday and Fridays from 7 to 8 in between there. I try to. I'm not always able to
Yeah.
go live, but I try to keep that schedule. And you can always DM me at any time. Also, my website has my phone number, my email address, healingwithjanice@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Yeah, we'll put all of that in the show notes as well, so that people have that information and can reach out to you. I'm so grateful that we got to have this conversation today. It was such a heartfelt conversation. Thank you for being open to talk about this. Just this conversation is going to help a lot of people, and I greatly appreciate it. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we end?
I just want to thank you and let everyone know out there, you're not alone. That's another one of my statements. You're not alone. You know, reach out. There's someone out there that will help you along the way. It's up to you to take that first step.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Well, I'm hoping some people will listen today and take that first step towards you. So thanks so much for sharing your story, and my intention was that we would be able to talk about brain injuries today and give some coaches some skills. And also if someone's a coachee with a brain injury, that they would feel encouraged. They would feel encouraged to share what they would like to share about that, and know that when you share that in a coaching partnership, that it can really help the partnership. And I think it can even improve outcomes because the partnership is more solidified. So thanks so much for being here with me, Janice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless.
If there is only one thing to take away from today's episode, it's to remember to ask about learning styles in your discovery calls so that you can support your clients in the best way possible. If you enjoyed the episode today, please head on over and rate and review our podcast so that more people can receive these helpful tips and tools around coaching. Thank you so much for listening. Can't wait to talk to you next time. And remember that holistic coach legacy, it's a path, not a destination.